It's human nature to be a bit naughty sometimes. I'm talking about little things, like stealing a pack of gum or going number 2 and forgetting to flush. You're not going to be serving any hard time for these infractions, but the town of South Park though? Now that's a different story. Any lawyer in the town would be diving into Scrooge McDuck pool of gold, drug labs blowing up, guys bouncing around on giant nutsacks. It sounds like a weekend in Baltimore, but nope, that's just another Tuesday in South Park. Today I'm covering the most egregious crimes from each and every character in South Park. Time to really see how evil these kids are, and how long they would theoretically spend in jail for their actions. Now I have the memory and attention span of a roofied goldfish, so if I forgot a moment or event, feel free to harass me in the comments. We're covering a large majority of the main characters in the show, and I'm excited to see who would be spending the most time in the slammer. Okay, yeah, we probably all already know the answer to that, but I'm going to cover each character along with a few of the worst crimes they have ever committed and what the punishment that they would likely face is. Remember, I am not a lawyer, so I'm researching what each punishment for the crime would be. I will try my best to deem accurate punishments for the crimes, and I'm also considering that everyone is tried as an adult just to make things easier on myself. You're probably watching this while actively on the toilet, so focus up and let's get into it. If you enjoy these types of videos, please be sure to subscribe. I have a growing backlog of cartoon related content you can check out if you need something to play noise while you eat dinner. A link to our Discord is also below. Join and help us count to 1 million, one chat message at a time. And as always, a massive shout out to our patrons and channel members. Thanks for the continued support. Let's get back to the video. Craig is the first character on our list today. This list isn't in any particular order, so you gotta watch the whole video to see where your favorite character Clyde is. Okay, he's 11th for the Clyde stands. Feel free to skip ahead to the 11th character. Craig's record is pretty squeaky clean. He has a habit of flipping people off without a warrant, but that's not particularly a crime. Craig did get caught up in some trouble when he started a Peruvian flute band with the main boys. Little did Craig know that the Peruvian flute band summoned giant man-eating guinea pigs who wreaked havoc on the entire world. Craig and the boys were deported to Peru, where they were mistaken for an authentic Peruvian flute band. They end up making it back and saving the world, but I gotta slap Craig with a busking charge. Busking is basically street performing, and it's generally protected under the First Amendment. Craig gets off scot-free on this one, you know, unless he flips off the wrong person. Mr. Slave is an incredibly wild character in the South Park universe. The #1 rule of the Buckoverse is to always make toast in the oven. It takes longer, but it provides optimal crispiness. And the #2 rule is that we do not kink shame. Mr. Slave has some crazy kinks, and he does not try to hide them. It has gotten him into trouble on multiple occasions. Most famously, he challenged Paris Hilton to a, and I quote, whore off. The result of this was, for lack of a better and less grotesque word, Mr. Slave absorbed Paris Hilton with his bum. To put this lightly, this is kidnapping, assault, and attempted murder. Thankfully, Paris Hilton did survive the incident, which will help Mr. Slave's pleas, but unfortunately for him, this isn't the first time that he's done this. He is a habitual offender of absorbing things.
What?
His victim list also includes a lemur and another unnamed man. This doesn't even begin to touch on his public indecency charges. I'm estimating Mr. Slave will be given anywhere from 87 to 215 years in prison, along with putting him on a list of bad people that should never be allowed near South Park Elementary. Kenny is the first of the main 4 characters that we'll be covering today. The list of criminal offenses that Kenny has participated in is a lengthy one. Kenny did have some substance abuse issues in the episode Major Boobage. Kenny was addicted to cheesing, which is the act of huffing cat urine. I am very relieved to have learned that this is not a real thing. I never really questioned it. I just assumed that the cartoon I was watching wouldn't lie to me. Kenny's worst crime though comes from the Fun with Weapons episode. Kenny and the boys are playing ninjas with real weapons. Kenny takes things a bit too far and throws a ninja star into Butters' eye. Not wanting to get in trouble, the boys dress Butters up as a dog and take him to the veterinarian's office. From this incident, Kenny gets hit with assault with a deadly weapon, reckless endangerment, and conspiracy to cover up a crime. Luckily for Kenny, Butters did survive and made a full recovery somehow, and more importantly, they didn't get into any legal trouble for their actions in the episode. They, however, were grounded when Cartman tried to sneak by the parents fully nude. Adding up the charges for this one, and Kenny would likely receive about 8 to 23 years in prison for these actions, but hey, at least his orange parka already looks like a prison jumpsuit. Mr. Mackey is the wacky and zany school counselor who tries to keep the kids on the straight and narrow. Mr. Mackey tries to keep the kids away from drugs and alcohol with his favorite catchphrase. Drugs are bad, okay? Alcohol is bad, okay? Mackey's largest crime may be when the viewers were forced to watch the scene where he got freaky with Miss Chokes on PP. Other than this and being a horrible guidance counselor, Mr. Mackey has a pretty clean record, aside from one major incident. In the episode Bass to Mouth, Cartman learns of a very large conspiracy that the teachers participated in to try and protect the students. The group of teachers, including Mr. Mackey, enlist Cartman to try and help the affected student by getting all the other students to crap themselves. If all the students soil their trousers, then nobody will feel bad about doing it. Once the teachers are done with their plan, and done with Cartman, they realize he knows too much, and they try to literally throw him under the bus. Not figuratively, they actually push Cartman in front of a bus. Cartman survives the attempted assassination, but Mr. Mackey would be hit with attempted murder for this stunt. This would likely land Mr. Mackey 16 to 48 years in prison, and double-crossing Eric is unheard of, based off what we know he is capable of. Betraying Cartman is like willingly picking a fight with John Wick. Good luck, Mr. Mackey. Luckily, Cartman hasn't came for you yet. The Goth Kids includes the full group: Michael, Henrietta, Pete, and Ferkel. The Goths are a minor character, appearing in only a few select episodes. As a group, they've committed one major crime together. In the Ungroundable episode, all the kids in South Park are turning into wannabe conformist vampires, a group that the Goth Kids absolutely despise. After being mistaken for vampire kids one too many times, the Goths finally snap and seek vengeance. Butters convinces them that destroying the Hot Topic in the mall will end the vampire craze. So that's exactly what they do. They burn the store down. This is a very clear act of arson and destruction of property. Thankfully for the Goths, nobody was harmed in the burning down of the Hot Topic, and the judge may be swayed for a lighter sentence by the iconic Burn Down Hot Topic song that came out of it. The Goths would likely be sentenced to 4 to 12 years of prison time, and during that time they'd probably just sit in their cells and smoke cigarettes while drinking coffee. Gerald Broflovski is Kyle's dad, so surely he's an even-tempered and well-mannered adult, right? Gerald is one of the most even-keeled people in South Park. While he is a lawyer by day, he hides another secret by night. He is a major internet troll. I don't think I can say his screen name on YouTube, but his cyberbullying has serious implications. Gerald is a relentless troll online and causes many people to have breakdowns. His most egregious trolling caused a woman to log out permanently. Gerald would likely be charged with enforced unaliving and would likely face 2 to 6 years in prison. Luckily for him, he's a lawyer and he can save himself some money by just representing himself. You wouldn't think that sweet Timmy would be involved in any crimes, but boy, you'd be wrong. There is evil behind those cold, dark eyes. In the episode Cripple Fight, Jimmy and Timmy throw down to settle their differences. Jimmy arrives to the town of South Park, becoming very popular and making Timmy jealous. Timmy attempts to get rid of Jimmy by giving him Kenny's orange parka. Timmy is hoping the mystical forces that constantly try to eliminate Kenny will do the same to Jimmy. Jimmy then unknowingly survives a lot of comedic attempts at his life, such as a safe falling and narrowly missing a stampede of cows. If these events were traced back to the parka, Timmy could be in some serious trouble. Later on in that same episode, Jimmy and Timmy get into a cripple fight. Oh, that's where they get the name from. They get into a cripple fight. I get it. You could label this as assault, but kids fight like this all the time, so charges likely would not result from this. Timmy would likely be charged with attempted murder if they're able to directly correlate the weird series of events to that orange parka. This one is a bit of a stretch for me, and Timmy would probably just plead insanity anyway. No charges for Timmy here. Wheel on, big fella. Towelie is quite literally a towel. A piece of thick, absorbent cloth or paper used for drying oneself or wiping things dry. Towelie isn't a very bad actor as he is pretty self-centered. Oftentimes, Towelie won't even acknowledge other people in the room with him. Why, you might ask? Well, Towelie loves to get high. Smoking the devil's lettuce is not illegal in Colorado, so we can't hit Towelie with anything there. The devil's lettuce can sometimes be used as a gateway drug into harder and more illegal substances, and this is likely where Towelie would get his largest criminal charge. Towelie has had many run-ins with hard drugs like cocaine, heroin, and even computer duster. From this, Towelie would likely receive a possession, and depending on the quantity, they could add intent to distribute. I'll keep it simple and leave it as just possession, landing Towelie up to 18 months in jail or rehab. Being a main character of a nearly 30-year-old show, Stan has quite the criminal history. He's done really horrible things like smoking and illegally downloading music online. Man, if people got locked up for that, they would have to imprison every living person in the early 2000s. Stan's worst crime, however, was done as an act of passion, to save something he cared deeply about: dolphins and whales. In the Whale Hordes episode, Stan takes action against the Japanese to protect innocent dolphins and whales, eventually joining the crew of Whale Wars to try and save these precious animals. After realizing that they don't do anything at all in Whale Wars, Stan takes charge. Stan uses a flare gun to destroy the enemy whaling ship, sending it straight down to Davy Jones' locker. Stan also uses projectiles and explosives to take down other ships during a montage. From these actions, Stan is directly responsible for the deaths of the sailors aboard these ships. Cartman has an episode where he became a pirate, but Stan is doing Jack Sparrow levels of piracy here. They will likely throw the book at Stan, even if the media is portraying him as a whale-saving hero. At the minimum, Stan would receive life in prison for piracy. Stan could even face a extremist activist charge because his actions are categorized under eco-activism. Sorry Stan, you're one of the best characters, but they're hitting you with life in prison for this one. The whales and dolphins might try to break you out, but for now, this is where you'll be. PC Principal is a character that was introduced in the later years of South Park. Wait, he first appeared in 2015? Well, now I feel like an old geezer. PC Principal is usually seen as a moral compass in the South Park universe, typically sticking up for marginalized groups, demanding social justice. PC Principal is something of a bro, and he'll do anything to make sure you're acting politically correct. PC Principal isn't against giving you an old-fashioned beatdown if you happen to utter a microaggression, even if you're a kid. In the episode Stunning and Brave, PC Principal brutally beats down Cartman for using the term spokesman instead of spokesperson. A minor slip of the tongue resulted in Cartman's wide body being slammed around the bathroom, putting him in the hospital. Cartman was slammed so hard into the sinks in the bathroom that he broke both of them. The violent assault on a minor would likely land PC Principal about 15 years in prison and a lifetime ban from working in schools. Knowing Cartman, he would likely pursue every penny from PC Principal in civil lawsuits. But either way, South Park is going to need a new principal. Clyde is more of a background character outside of the main group of boys. Clyde is one of the few characters in South Park who has a pretty squeaky clean record. Squeaky clean just like the toilet seat that Clyde always leaves up. In the episode Reverse Cowgirl, Clyde is told to put the toilet seat down time and time again, but he just doesn't listen. I'll admit it is optimal to leave the seat up, but Clyde made this fateful mistake one too many times. Even after all the times his mom tried to get him to put the seat down, eventually she sat down on a seatless porcelain throne and got stuck. The suction of the toilet was too powerful and led to her untimely demise. It's debatable if Clyde should be criminally charged for his negligence. There's an argument to be made that no toilet should have so much suction that it can suck your insides out. If convicted, Clyde would likely face a negligent homicide charge, coming with 1 to 3 years in prison. I see this as a long shot conviction though. If only Clyde had top sniper-like precision like some of us, you can pee with the seat still down. It does take years of practice, and sometimes external factors like wind can lead to some pee on the seat, but I digress. In The Return of Chef, he gets brainwashed and becomes a diddler. Randy is one of South Park's most polarizing characters. The list of crimes that Randy has participated in is longer than a CVS receipt. Picking just one moment is a near impossible task. If you exclude all the murder that Randy has participated in during his extended screen time, you're still left with arson, indecent exposure, drunk driving, assault, and starting COVID, just to name a few. None of this, however, compares to the heinous acts that Randy did in the Mexican Joker episode. Randy conspires with billionaires of the cannabis industry to eliminate some homegrown markets. This results in Randy going nuclear on these other operations, dropping literal bombs on them and burning them to the ground. All of this so he can corner the market and make a profit. These actions cause death and destruction. Randy is likely to be hit with arson, murder, racketeering, and even extremist activity charges. From these charges, Randy is likely serving multiple life sentences and tack on an extra 70 to 85 years after the fact. Colorado no longer has the death penalty, but if they were to bring it back, Randy might be one of the first ones on the list. Aside from Cartman, Randy might be South Park's most prolific criminal. Cartman's mom Liane is another character who has a pretty clean criminal record. We know she's a firm enabler of Cartman's terrible behaviors and choices, and she's also one of the worst parents in the show and quite possibly in TV history. These things aren't necessarily crimes though. If being a bad parent was a crime, then they'd have to lock up everyone who raised their kids to be Dallas Cowboys fans. Liane is known for her promiscuity. In the early seasons, it is heavily implied that Liane is a sex worker, and there is even a 2-episode special based on this entire premise. Cartman is trying to find who his real dad is, tracing down each person Liane did the birds and the bees with on that fateful night. Being an escort in Colorado is illegal, and Liane would likely spend a small amount of time behind bars if caught. Performing/soliciting acts could land her no more than 6 months in jail, which is a very short stay behind bars compared to most of the characters in South Park. Maybe in jail she can read some books on how to become a better parent. Jimmy is known as one of the nicer kids in South Park. He does stand-up comedy, and he's a generally good and supportive friend. Jimmy is one of the more grounded characters in the South Park cinematic universe. Much like the rest of the town, Jimmy has succumbed, no pun intended, to the dark side once or twice. Most of Jimmy's major offenses come from the episode Erection Day. Jimmy keeps having a reoccurring dream of being overly excited during the school's talent show. This is a pretty natural thing, and it's just a part of going through puberty. If something like this persists for more than 8 hours, please contact your doctor. Jimmy's excitement keeps occurring, and he needs a way to quell this issue before the talent show. If this occurred during the talent show, he would surely be the laughingstock of the school, for all the wrong reasons. To solve his issue, he gets some advice from Butters that he should do the birds and the bees. Not sure Butters is the best source of advice in this scenario, Jimmy. Jimmy harasses 2 of the other students, Red and Shauna, into doing the deed, but they both reject him. Jimmy is forced to take more drastic measures, and he acquires a lover for hire named Nut Gobbler. This isn't legal in Colorado, and his fun times with Nut Gobbler would land him a soliciting hanky-panky charge. This would result in Jimmy spending up to 120 days in jail for a first offense, and to make matters worse, this didn't even solve his problem, as once he got back to the talent show, he was very, very happy. Stuart Mccormick is Kenny's dad. Shocking, I know. See how I put that one together though? And Stuart is undoubtedly one of the worst parents in South Park. Kenny and his brother and sister largely live in squalor, surviving off of plain frozen waffles and bread sandwiches. Aren't all sandwiches bread sandwiches technically? For most of the show, Stuart has never really had a job and lives primarily off of welfare. Stuart's an alcoholic, and he's known to be abusive to his wife Carol. The most heinous crime that the McCormick parents commit is pretending to be the Kmart version of Walter White. In multiple episodes it is mentioned that they operate a meth lab, but in the episode The Poor Kid, they're finally busted and the kids get sent away to foster care. Kenny and his siblings are placed into an agnostic home, but towards the end of the episode, Stuart and Carol are given custody back to the kids. Manufacturing meth could land them between 8 and 32 years in prison. Slap on child endangerment with another 2 to 6 year sentencing. Add on possession of a controlled substance for funsies, and we've got about 12 to 44 years behind bars for both of the McCormick parents. They will for sure be losing custody of the kids permanently. I hope Kenny and his siblings enjoy Dr. Pepper that the agnostics provide them, because that's all they're gonna have left to drink. Mr. Garrison is another polarizing character in the South Park universe. Outside of the main 4 boys and Randy, Mr. Garrison is right there in terms of relevance. Mr. Garrison is also one of the most controversial characters in the entire show. Being one of South Park's most complex characters, Mr. Garrison has been through an absolute whirlwind of character arcs. In terms of crimes committed, Mr. Garrison is one of the most extreme offenders in South Park. Most of Mr. Garrison's crimes are grotesque and genuinely pretty insane, so let's take a break from the bad crimes, and let's go with something good that Mr. Garrison has done. Wait, there really isn't a ton to work with here. Here goes nothing. In season 27, Mr. Garrison has finally embraced who he really is, and he's living a low-key and happy lifestyle. There, I had to dig really deep, but I came up with something. It's tough when a character has gone through more arcs than most animes, not named One Piece. If you can think of something nice that Mr. Garrison has done, then leave it in the comments below. Smile. Tweek is another one of the boys outside of the main group. Tweek's family owns a coffee shop in town, and as a result, Tweek is always, well, tweaking out. He's jittery and paranoid. It doesn't help that the coffee he drinks is laced with meth. Wait, did the McCormicks supply drugs to the Tweek Bros coffee house? Now that's a conspiracy. Tweek's criminal record is pretty light, which is a noticeable trend with the supporting cast. It makes sense. The less extravagant events you participate in with the main boys, the shorter your criminal record is. Tweek's worst crime is one of the most interesting ones I've come across. In the episode Free Hat, Stan and Kyle are tied to a pole and are forced to watch an enhanced, re-released version of Raiders of the Lost Ark. Tweek arrives on the scene just in time to save them, threatening to destroy the movie with a rocket launcher that he somehow got his hands on. Tweek seems ready to fire, but he stands down and ends up being captured. Thankfully, the enhanced movie is so bad that there are no survivors of the film's viewing outside of the boys. If this screening did take place in Colorado, Tweek would likely be charged with criminal possession of explosives, resulting in 4 to 12 years served in prison. However, there weren't any survivors from the showing, no witnesses means no convictions, so Twee is free to tweak on. He could probably benefit from some jail time though to get sobered up from his laced coffee addiction. Wendy is known as one of the goody two-shoe characters in South Park. She's smart, kind, and rarely finds herself wrapped up in shenanigans. But if you step between her and the off and on guy she kinda likes a little bit, then the gloves come off. This happens to the poor soul, Miss Ellen. In the episode Tom's Rhinoplasty, Miss Ellen is a substitute teacher who has the class falling head over heels for her looks. In the early seasons, Stan used to show his attraction to someone by throwing up. You know how you get butterflies in your stomach when your crush blocks you on Facebook? Well, Stan doesn't do that. He just pukes all over. Stan was doing this for Miss Ellen, and Wendy would not stand for it. She even misinterpreted Miss Ellen's niceness for flirting back. Wendy orchestrates some soldiers to bust into the classroom and take her away. The soldiers kidnap Miss Ellen, load her into a rocket, and fire her towards the sun. And just like 1 billion lions wouldn't, Miss Ellen did not survive the sun's surface. Fun fact though, she was revived for the South Park movie, and she can be spotted there. Wendy would likely be charged with murder by proxy, as Wendy essentially orchestrated a hit on Miss Ellen. She would likely be guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Wendy would likely be sentenced to life in prison for this, and all because Stan stopped puking on her. Butters is another sweet and innocent kid in South Park. The only problem for Butters is that he hangs around the main 4 boys a bit too much. Due to this, Butters' criminal history is insanely long. Fraud, blackmail, car theft, manslaughter, voter fraud, war crimes. Butter is not the sweet and innocent guy that we think he is. Butter's crimes alone could be their own video. Let me know if you want to see that. The most memorable crime to me is when Butters becomes a pimp. Butters, wanting to make some money and be responsible, decides to start a kissing company. You can pay a small fee for kisses and hugs at recess. Butters' business did so well that he rapidly expanded to more employees and locations. Some of these employees were actual ladies of the night. Butters is blissfully ignorant and he thinks they're just selling very expensive kisses at all hours of the night. Butters does a lot to improve his business and managerial skills. He even goes to a pimp convention and learns from some of the experts in the field. I didn't know these were a thing, but somebody has to keep Motel 6 in business, right? Butters didn't really know that he was a pimp, but I don't see how well that defense would hold up in court. This would likely result in Butters spending 4 to 12 years in prison. I would guess if he was convicted, he would receive a lighter sentence. After all, he did just think he was selling kisses, and he even tried to get his employees approved for housing loans. Anybody, and I mean anybody, would be lucky to have Butters as a boss. Officer Barbrady was a commonly recurring character in the early seasons of South Park. Officer Barbrady is a very incompetent police officer for the town. I'm surprised they would hire him, as he didn't know how to read until about halfway through season 2. As an officer of the law, Barbrady doesn't have much of a criminal record. One of the lone highlights for him is that in the series premiere, Barbrady runs over Kenny and keeps on driving. A cool piece of trivia here that Officer Barbrady was responsible for Kenny's first death in the episodes. For this, Barbrady would likely be hit with a vehicular homicide charge, resulting in Barbrady spending 2 to 6 years behind bars. The good news for Barbrady is that the police force will likely just place him on paid leave while he serves his time in prison. I'm pairing Nathan and Mimsy together as they committed all their crimes together. Nathan acts as a criminal underbelly in South Park, but don't let his disabilities fool you. Nathan is evil, and he's got Mimsy, the muscle, to back him up. Nathan has participated in numerous crimes during his limited screen time. The dynamic duo's worst offenses come from a single episode, Crippled Summer. This episode follows Timmy and Jimmy to a summer camp at Lake Titicaca. Nathan is sick and tired of Jimmy's team beating them year after year at camp. This leads Nathan to plot Jimmy's demise. Nathan has plenty of schemes in his mind to do away with Jimmy once and for all, each consecutive plan ramping up the absurdity from the last. First, Nathan has Mimsy plant an extremely venomous black mamba in Jimmy's canoe. This backfires as Mimsy places the snake in his own canoe. Next, they swap Jimmy's team's scavenger hunt to a map that will lead them to an extremely dangerous Tartikaka Indian tribe. Again, Mimsy screws up and swaps their own map, leading to Nathan being shot by arrows. Why are they putting a summer camp for kids next to extremely hostile Indians? During a surfing competition, Nathan tries to get Jimmy attacked by a shark. Again, this backfires due to Mimsy's incompetence, resulting in Nathan getting assaulted. Nathan's last hurrah involves him planting C4 on Jimmy's ukulele. The C4 will detonate when a certain note is played. Luckily for Jimmy though, he can't quite play that portion of the song right, and Nathan out of frustration shows Jimmy how it's done and detonates it on himself. Nathan could get hit with attempted murder for each of these 4 actions, and his use of explosives would also be another charge, along with conspiracy to commit murder. All of this would land Nathan around 116 years to life in prison for his actions. Mimsy would also likely receive very similar punishment, as Mimsy was the main actor in all of these crimes, but Nathan was the brains behind it. Poor Mimsy, he really deserves better friends. Maybe he could be friends with Cartman. Tolkien is one of the few kids in South Park with a good head on his shoulders. He's not easily swayed into the other boys' antics, and because of this, Tolkien's criminal record is a short list to pick from. Nothing really stands out as over-the-top wacky. In the episode Christian Rock Hard, Tolkien does assault Cartman for making racist comments. After Eric crashes out for technically losing his bet with Kyle, he goes nuclear and loses the massive crowd that had gathered to see Eric, Butters, and Tolkien's band play. Tolkien is fed up after Cartman makes a racist remark and hits him with a smooth 1-2-3 combo, knocking Cartman down. Nothing more is made of this ordeal, and Cartman really deserved it. This could be considered assault, but this is nothing more than a couple kids scrapping. If charges were pressed, Tolkien's parents would be able to get a top-notch lawyer to represent him anyway. Satan is a super interesting character in the South Park universe. Despite being the ruler of hell, Satan is a very soft and sympathetic character. His largest crime might be when he led the armies of hell in an assault on heaven. In the episode Best Friends Forever, Satan launched a large-scale invasion into heaven. Heaven's only chance for survival was for Kenny to command their armies using a golden PSP. The only problem though was that Kenny is still being kept alive on Earth through life support, resulting in Kenny being in limbo. In the end, Kenny was able to assist Heaven's army in defeating Satan. Satan would be charged as a war criminal for the war he started, and depending on the legal domain of heaven and hell, I could see him being sentenced to life in prison, or he could be sentenced to death. I don't know about you, but good luck catching the Lord of the Underworld to charge him. There is not enough money in the world to pay Dog the Bounty Hunter to try and go get Satan for his warrants. We are ending the list today with 2 of the most heavy hitters in the franchise. Let's start with Kyle. Kyle is one of South Park's 5 main characters, alongside the other 3 boys and Randy to an extent. He's been a mainstay in the show throughout its entire history, and this has resulted in a lengthy list of crimes. The list of crimes that Kyle has participated in is longer than some phone books. Kyle has taken some part in the following criminal activities: drug abuse, underage smoking, illegal use of fireworks, assault, academic fraud, organized crime, performing unlicensed surgery, arson, breaking and entering, and even toilet papering his art teacher's house. Almost all of these crimes are interesting and tell wild stories from Kyle's history. The crime I chose in the end is one I found pretty compelling. In the episode Sexual Healing, Kyle and Butters are deemed sex addicts. Kyle and Butters are sentenced to a healing center where they can cure their addiction. Kyle begins wising up to the fact that sex addiction isn't a valid excuse for cheating on your significant other. A group of scientists find out that having large sums of money usually leads to this behavior. They inform Obama, who comes to the conclusion that an alien released a virus, causing all this addiction. Kyle and Butters are then given weapons to try and kill the evil alien and cure the disease. This alien was actually a soldier in disguise. Kyle and Butters eventually take the alien down, but is this considered a murder? This is technically involuntary manslaughter, but they were given the order by the acting US president. So do Kyle and Butters have zero liability in this scenario? I believe that Kyle and Butters would face no punishment for their actions in this scene. They were misguided and given clear objectives by the government. I wonder if there's any similar case law available for comparison. If anyone knows anything, please do chime in. Kyle gets no prison time for this one, meaning that Kyle would have gotten in more trouble for illegally downloading music than for killing an alien. What a wild world. And last but not least, we have Cartman, the show's most deranged and evil character. Cartman's extensive criminal record dwarfs Kyle's in comparison. Entire videos have been made on Cartman alone, stating how long he'd be charged for every crime he has committed. But which crime is worthy of being his worst? It's a difficult task to find a crime that Eric has not committed, let alone pick his worst one. But I believe this to be his most heinous crime. In South Park's most highly rated episode, Scott Tenorman Must Die, Scott Tenorman scams Cartman out of about $16.12 and humiliates him in the process. This causes something deep inside of Cartman to snap, and he launches one of the most devious plots for revenge in TV history. Cartman fools Kyle and Stan into double-crossing him, leading them to alert Scott's parents of Cartman's plan with a hot dog biting pony. Scott's parents go to rescue the pony, where they meet their demise at the hands of an overprotective farmer. Cartman then dismembers the bodies and feeds them to an unknowing Scott Tenorman in a bowl of chili. This is one of the most insane twists in South Park history, and the level of genius that Cartman displays to accomplish his goal is downright terrifying. Cartman is pulling some Dexter levels of cunning to seek his revenge. And to put the cherry on top of his crimes, Cartman licks the tears from Scott Tenorman's face as he is crying in shock of what just happened. Cartman would get the absolute book thrown at him for these crimes. There were tons of witnesses there who heard Cartman confess his exact crimes. Even the band Radiohead could be called to the stand as a witness. Cartman would be charged with 2 counts of murder by proxy, as well as 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, throw on abuse of a corpse, and food tampering for funsies, and Cartman's looking at 2 life sentences with 30 to 70 additional years after that. But hey, at least he got revenge for Scott Tenorman stealing $16.12 from him. And there we have it, the worst crime from every South Park character. Well, except for Bebe. Sorry, Bebe. If I forgot any characters or crimes, feel free to let me know in the comments. Okay, this video is long enough as it is, so make sure to subscribe and join the Discord. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.